Hello, you're watching movie Snapshot scenes, and this is the summary of The Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Fire and ruin. The dragon came in the dead of night, with wings stretched wide and fire burning in his chest. Smaug descended upon Laketown like a storm of death. The people had no time to flee. Flames lit the sky as the dragon roared, setting buildings ablaze and turning wooden homes into ash. Screams echoed over the water, and panic spread like wildfire. Amid the chaos, Bard, the only one who had truly believed the dragon would come, broke free from his prison. The town's cowardly master had locked him away, fearing his warnings would cause unrest. But now, Bard was the only hope the town had. He climbed a high tower with his bow, scanning the sky for a chance. His young son, Bane, brought him the last remaining black arrow, a mighty bolt, the only weapon capable of piercing a dragon's hide. Smaug spotted Bard and swooped down, hissing with fury. The two locked eyes, one a simple man, the other a force of ancient destruction. With steady hands, Bard took aim. He saw the weak spot Bilbo had discovered, just above Smaug's heart, where a scale was missing. With Bane holding the arrow steady, Bard fired. The arrow struck true. Smaug screamed, twisted in the air, and fell from the sky like a meteor, crashing into the lake in a wave of fire and steam. The dragon was dead, but Laketown was in ruins. Survivors huddled along the frozen shores, cold, wounded, and afraid. Among them were Bard, his children, and the people who now looked to him for leadership. Meanwhile, up in the lonely mountain, Thorin Oakenshield stood among the gold, staring into the treasure of Erebor. The dragon sickness had taken hold of him. He paced the golden halls, muttering, obsessed with the Arkenstone, unaware that Bilbo already had it, and hadn't told him. Thorin had reclaimed his kingdom, but at what cost? Across Middle-earth, word of Smaug's death spread quickly. Elves, men, and dwarves turned their eyes toward the mountain and its treasure. And so, with the dragon slain, a new danger began to rise, not from fire, but from greed, pride, and war. With Smaug defeated, the lonely mountain stood silent once more, but not at peace. Inside, Thorin Oakenshield wandered through the golden halls of Erebor like a shadow of himself. Surrounded by endless riches, he grew restless and cold. His eyes were fixed not on his people or his purpose, but on one thing alone, the Arkenstone. The dragon sickness had taken hold. He accused his kin of betrayal, ordered the entrances sealed, and paced the halls like a king guarding a cursed throne. Even Bilbo, who had stood by him through every danger, saw the change. The Thorin he knew, the brave leader, the honorable dwarf, was slipping away. But Bilbo had the Arkenstone. He had found it during their first venture into the treasure hoard and kept it, hoping to give it to Thorin at the right time. Now, watching his friend descend into obsession, Bilbo wasn't sure if that time would ever come. Outside the mountain, the people of Laketown, led by Bard, marched toward Erebor seeking refuge and a fair share of the treasure Thorin had promised. They had lost their homes and livelihoods because of the dwarves' quest, and now came to claim what they were owed. They weren't alone. Thranduil, the elven king of Mirkwood, arrived with a host of soldiers, not just to help the survivors, but to claim ancient elvish heirlooms once held within the mountain. Bard hoped for peace. He asked Thorin to honor his word and share the treasure. But Thorin refused. He saw only enemies at his gates, not allies. He sent back cold words and colder threats. Worse, he sent for help. From his cousin, Dain Ironfoot, a dwarf lord who would march with an army of warriors from the Iron Hills. As tensions rose outside, Bilbo made a secret choice. Believing Thorin would never come to his senses, he slipped away in the night and delivered the Arkenstone to Bard. Not as a weapon, but as a bargaining tool, hoping to avoid war. The armies were gathering. The mountain was surrounded, and inside, Thorin stood alone, rich beyond measure, but blinded by gold. Dawn broke over the lonely mountain, casting a pale light on the fields below. Bard stood before the gates of Erebor, holding the Arkenstone high for all to see. His voice rang out as he called on Thorin to honor his debt and avoid bloodshed. When Thorin saw the Arkenstone in Bard's hands, he was stunned and furious. He demanded to know how Bard had come by it. Bilbo stepped forward and confessed. He had given it away, hoping to bring peace. Thorin's eyes filled with betrayal. In his madness, he nearly had Bilbo thrown from the mountain. But instead of punishment, Thorin sent him away, banished from Erebor. Outside, Bard's plea fell on deaf ears. Thorin refused to yield. Tension rippled through the valley. The dwarves of the Iron Hills, led by Dain Ironfoot, arrived clad in heavy armor, their war cries echoing through the mountains. They stood ready to fight beside Thorin, no matter the cost. Just as the first blades were about to be drawn, a dark cloud rose on the horizon. Azog the Defiler, the Pale Orc, had come, leading a vast army of orcs from Gundabad. The real war was not between dwarf, elf, and man, but against a common enemy. The ground trembled beneath the orc battalions, and all former rivals now faced the same deadly truth. If they didn't stand together, they would fall alone. The Battle of the Five Armies began. Elves, men, and dwarves joined forces in a desperate defense. The sky darkened with the beating of orc war drums. From the mountains, goblins and giant bats descended. It was chaos, screams, steel, fire, and blood. Meanwhile, Gandalf, who had been imprisoned by the dark forces in Dol Guldur, was rescued by Galadriel, Elrond, and Saruman. Together, they fought against the rising darkness of Sauron, forcing him to retreat for now. As the battle raged below, Thorin stood atop the walls of Erebor, watching in silence. The war he had feared was here, but the fight was no longer over treasure. It was about survival. The King under the mountain. As the battle raged outside, Thorin Oakenshield remained within the golden halls of Erebor, consumed by doubt, pride, and madness. He paced like a prisoner, surrounded by treasure he had long dreamed of. But it brought him no peace. The gold whispered lies. Every word from his friends felt like betrayal. Every voice of reason was drowned out by the sickness in his mind. His company, Fili, Kili, Dwalin, and the others, begged him to fight for his people, to defend the mountain and stand beside their kin. But Thorin refused. He was no longer thinking like a king or a warrior. He was lost in his own obsession, guarding the treasure like a dragon rather than a dwarf. Meanwhile, outside the mountain, chaos ruled. The alliance of men, elves, and dwarves battled wave after wave of orcs. The skies swirled with darkness, and the snow turned red with blood. Still, the defenders held their ground, even as they were pushed to their limits. And then, something changed. Deep within Erebor, Thorin stood on a golden floor and saw his reflection. The weight of his decisions, the emptiness of the treasure, and the echo of his father's madness all pressed down on him. In that moment, he remembered who he was. Not a tyrant, not a treasure hoarder, but a leader. He cast off his crown. He cast off his fear. Thorin emerged from the gates of Erebor, clad in royal armor, eyes fierce with purpose. He rallied his company and led a charge into the heart of battle. The dwarves roared with renewed strength. For the first time, Thorin was truly the king they needed. Bilbo, watching from afar, saw the change and smiled with relief, but worry still lingered in his heart. The battle, though fierce, was not over. Azog still commanded from a distant ridge, and a second army was on the way. To end the war, Thorin knew what he had to do. He would go to Azog himself, with Fili, Kili, and Dwalin at his side, for one final stand. with the battle raging across the valley, Thorin led a small band of his most loyal warriors, Fili, Kili, and Dwalin, through a secret passage out of Erebor. Their goal: to confront Azog, the Defiler, the Orc commander, and end the war by cutting off its head. They climbed the icy peaks of Ravenhill, where Azog watched the battlefield from afar. Snow swirled around them as they moved through the ruins, blades drawn, hearts steady. Thorin knew this mission could cost them their lives, but he also knew it had to be done. Down below, the defenders of Dale and the elven archers fought bravely. Bard rallied the survivors of Laketown. Thranduil led his warriors with elegance and deadly precision. Even Bilbo, small and quiet, joined the fight in his own way, using stealth, cleverness, and the power of his courage. But then, Bilbo saw something from Ravenhill, Azog's second army approaching, an ambush. He ran to warn Thorin. On the mountain, the confrontation began. Fili was the first to fall, killed before Thorin's eyes in a cruel trap laid by Azog. Kili, consumed by rage and heartbreak, charged in to avenge his brother and protect Tauriel, the elf he had come to care for. But Azog's forces were too many. Kili died too, struck down in battle. Thorin faced Azog alone on a frozen river high above the valley. The two enemies clashed in a brutal duel, blade against blade, strength against fury. It was the fight that had been building for years. Bilbo reached the mountaintop just in time to see the end. Thorin, wounded and bleeding, finally struck the killing blow. Azog was dead. But so was Thorin's strength. As the battle below came to a close, Bilbo knelt beside his fallen friend. Thorin, his eyes clear at last, spoke to Bilbo with warmth and sorrow. He apologized for the madness, for the gold, for everything. He told Bilbo he was brave and that there was more to life than gold. Then, the king under the mountain took his final breath. There and back again. The battle was over. The snow lay red and silent across the valley. The orcs had been defeated, but the victory came at a heavy cost. Fili, Kili, and Thorin Oakenshield, heirs of Durin's line, had fallen. Their bodies were carried with honor back into Erebor, now reclaimed, but forever marked by loss. Inside the mountain, Thorin was laid to rest deep within the halls of stone, the Arkenstone placed upon his chest, and the sword Orcrist at his side. The gold no longer mattered. He had died a king, not because of treasure, but because he had remembered who he truly was. Dain Ironfoot, Thorin's cousin, became the new king under the mountain. Under his rule, Erebor would stand strong once more. The alliance between dwarves, elves, and men, born in battle, would bring peace to the region. But for Bilbo Baggins, the journey was done. He declined gold and jewels, taking only a small chest of silver and gold as a token of thanks. The wealth of Erebor had never mattered to him. What he longed for was simple: his home, his garden, his quiet life. As Bilbo prepared to leave, Thranduil approached Tauriel, mourning the death of Kili. Her heart had crossed boundaries. Elf and dwarf, once enemies, now bound by love and grief. Even Thranduil, proud and ancient, showed a rare moment of compassion. Gandalf, ever the wanderer, travelled with Bilbo part of the way back to the Shire. Along the road, the wizard revealed he had always known more about Bilbo than he let on. "You are more than you appear," he told him, "and you always have been." Finally, after a long and weary journey, Bilbo returned to Bag End, only to find it was being auctioned off. The world had moved on without him. He had been gone, for so long that he was believed dead. With some protest, he reclaimed his home, his pipe, and his peace. But something inside him had changed. The Shire was the same, but Bilbo was not. He had seen mountains and dragons, kings and battles, courage and sorrow. And now, sitting quietly, with a cup of tea, he realized that adventures don't just change the world, they change you too.